Rules Committee meeting up later in the month, gathering and looking at number one on the list, the faking of injuries. What was the term? I think feigning of injuries.
Yeah.
Was that the feigning injuries was the terminology that I saw. So happy with that. Yay, nay, that's a good thing.
I think everybody can agree that it's very annoying. It slows the game down, which is what we don't want. I just don't know, Brent, how you legislate it. Like, I'm not sure how you're going to be. Now, listen, we can see when they're obvious, but at the same point, it still becomes a player's, health and safety, which is obviously on the front, front burner all the time. And you're always thinking about concussions and all those different things. So, deeming an injury, how would you deem it a fake? How would you get, like, are you giving out a yellow card? Like, is this soccer? We're giving out yellow cards and red cards, you're kicked out. Like, you sold the piss out of that. That was bull crap. Like, I'm not buying it. Yellow card, like, oh, okay, it's a warning. I mean, I think how do you manage this is going to be important, because I don't know how you legislate that, because it's got to be an opinion. And a lot of times we have the benefit of a replay. So we watch as you watch it slowed down and you watch the sideline, man. It's like, hey, you take your fall, right? Like, and you see guys do it over and over again. But I think as a ref that's got all these things to look at and play clocks and substitutions and counting guys, now you're going to ask them to, okay, monitor the flopping, monitor the fake injuries. Like, I don't know how it gets solved I don't know how they solve it. I really don't know the answer to the issue unless you're going to flag people when it's obvious. But I think then people would be like, okay, let's make sure this is not super obvious. Let's make sure it's after a play and when you're already down or something like that. I mean, maybe just the egregious ones you find a way to handle or not.
Yeah, and Chris Vanini's article in The Athletic, they talked about a proposal that was you're out for the drive, and then you can buy them back into the game with a timeout. You'd have to use a timeout to get that person who did that. So, but like you said, it's determining that is still hard, because what if a guy like legitimately gets like a shock thing where it's like, ooh, that hurt, my hip hurts right now, that's bad, and I got to get out. But then I go to the sideline, and after that sort of initial shock, you're like, okay, I'm good, I can go back in the game. That's what's hard. I do think maybe replay would potentially get involved, but then you're
slowing the game
down, which is that was not good either. Others things that were on the docket I saw were coaches challenge model, kind of like the NFL with replay stuff. I don't know how much I like that versus what they do now. I will say this, in terms of game speed, the NFL has it figured out compared to college football.
Much better.
It's going to, for the most part, it's going to be 3 hours. College football can go forever and a day longer. So I think that's fine, whatever you get to that clock. Because I think the clock thing, like, it wasn't really an issue. There were less plays. I think maybe on average, I need to look at the exact numbers, but it was really close.
Mr. PFF. Come on, Mr.
I didn't look at nationwide numbers to see like average game numbers and things like that, but still yet there. So yeah, that's sort of news.
Didn't I see something about overtime rules too?
Yes, I think that was, and I think the timeouts. I'm sure that might be the Kirby Smart rule, where he saw what Georgia Tech lined up at and then took a timeout every.
See, that's the kind of stuff to me. Like, hey, NCAA, you kind of stink at your job. Like, I don't give a crap about overtime games that very rarely happen, and obviously 8 overtime games with Georgia and Georgia Tech. That's not going to happen very often. Like, can we address targeting? That would be great.
Where was that one?
Like, this is not hard. Now, it's hard with the injuries to me. That is extremely difficult to monitor. I'm not going to lie. I don't know the fix. I can fix targeting. I can fix that in 10 seconds. Flagrant 1, flagrant 2. Like, you are not kicked out of the game for targeting. Like, you are kicked out if it's like clearly malicious and you use the top of the dome and you destroy somebody, and that's the way you do it. Otherwise, like, I don't need to not to review this. This needs to be addressed. It needs to be discussed. Kids are working way too hard to get kicked out of games and to miss opportunities. And so I would even go as far too, like, Let's get rid of the suspension for the next game. If it's a flagrant 2, you're suspended for the next game. If it's a 1, you stay in the game. It ain't that big of a deal. So I really don't think that's
do you know?
extremely.
I don't know, but do you know anybody on the rules committee? Maybe
Yeah.
you can get an invite. Hey, as a former current concerned viewer of the sport and former player. So
you suck at your job. Have figured this out like that.
Just as long as they don't listen to that part, the part you said about that.
I mean,
like,
that part to me, but it just has to get figured out because so many games you see that's such an issue and it's awful. It's very frustrating, and you can't tell me that it's legislated the same all the time because that's hard to legislate too. But an easy fix is that if an offensive player changes his level, if an offensive player is a moving target and ducking, it's not targeting. If an offensive player is defenseless and gets striped, it's targeting. But when he's a ball carrier and he's got this wiggle and he's fast and you're asking me to get that guy on the ground, you come make that flipping tackle. It's not easy.
The one that really bothered me this season, obviously covering Georgia, so watching all their games, the Dan Jackson tackle against Texas, that was just a good solid tackle. It happened really fast. That was one I didn't think.
If you want to change an overtime rule, how about you change that we have to walk to the other side to run a play? Because that was stupid. That wasted more time than the timeouts. Because if you remember the 8 overtime game, Georgia did theirs, and then whoop, 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 whoop. Let's walk all the way to the other side of the field. Now you run yours. Oh, wait a minute. Let's go to the other side of the field. And I get it. I understand. Yeah. It's the home crowd, the student section. It's the technical advantage you get to it. One overtime, you play that side. Second overtime, you both play the other side. We don't have to do this back and forth. That was a bigger waste of time to me than the timeouts.
Yeah, that was not good. And maybe one of these days wind would come into an issue there, kicking, all that sort of stuff. But no, just stay in one place.